Are you tired of being a loser? Are you tired of DMing girls and they don't respond or DM you back? Are you just tired of not winning at life? Well, lucky for you, my friend, I have a solution to your problems. Subscribe to Matt Be Great. And I know what you're sitting there saying, yo, Matt, how does me subscribing to your channel help me win in life and help me get girls? It doesn't. But whoa, hold on, hear me out. It benefits me a ton, and that's what matters the most. Not only will it benefit me, it will benefit the channel a ton, and that's what it's all about. The channel cannot grow and achieve its dreams of hitting 200,000 subscribers without your help. So go down there, hit that subscribe button. If not, that's cool too. And as you can tell, I am very excited to get into today's video because we have the first edition of Matt Be Great's Way Too Early Top 25 for college football. We're making history, boys. This is the first ever, it's going down in history books, the first time we're doing this, and I hope we can do it many years down the road. Over the past couple of weeks, I've spent a countless amount of hours and time on making this list. There's two reasons as to why I'm making this list. Reason number one, and I think a lot of you guys can relate to me, I'm sick and tired of seeing these terrible top 25 predictions. I'm sick and tired of it. Year after year after year, they always got Notre Dame in the top 10 and the top 5, and I'm just going to give you a spoiler, they're not going to be in my top 10. I can't emphasize it enough. I'm sick and tired of seeing all these predictions, so I decided to do my own research. And reason number two as to why I'm making this video, I think it'll be interesting. I think I've hyped it up enough. If this is something you enjoy, let me know in the comment section. Hopefully we can do this in years to come, like I said. If y'all don't enjoy it, let me know. And now without further ado, let's get into it. We've had the AP poll, the BCS poll, and the college football playoff rankings, but this is the MBG top 25. Very exclusive list because it's never been seen before. I know exactly what you're sitting there saying. Yo, Matt, would you shut the crap up? I hear you. Let's just jump straight into it. Coming in at number 25 for the MBG top 25 rankings for 2022, we got Notre Dame. Yeah, that's right. You heard me correctly. We're already starting it off controversial. Year after year after year after year after year, Notre Dame's always in the top 10, top 5, and they always get overhyped. And every single year, history repeats itself. Notre Dame either plays in the college football playoff or they play in a primetime matchup and they get blown out of the water. Notre Dame is, and always probably will be, the most overhyped program of all time. Just because of what they've done in the 1960s, people still give them respect for that. Call me a Notre Dame hater, I just think it's facts. Ever since 2012 when Alabama drumrolled them in the championship game and embarrassed them, I thought that Notre Dame was the biggest fraudulent program in the country. You do want to give credit where it's due because when Brian Kelly was there, they did win the games they were supposed to. But whenever they were playing another great team, they wet the bed and they didn't even show up. It happens every single year, and that's why Brian Kelly left Notre Dame, and he even said it. He stated it publicly. This is his words, not mine. He said that Notre Dame can't compete with the Alabamas, Georgias, and Ohio States of the world because they don't get the recruits. When your own head coach says that, I think it says a lot about your program. We'll find out early on if they're the real deal or not because in week 1 they play Ohio State. But as a college football viewer and as a fan, why would I even begin to believe it's going to be close? Coming in at number 24, I have Kentucky, and there's only one reason for this, and that's their quarterback, Will Levis. Is that how you say his last name? I don't know. If I'm saying it wrong, I do apologize. Will Kentucky ever compete for a championship? Probably not, but they do good for what they got. They have arguably one of the most underrated coaches in college football in Mark Stoops, and like I said, their quarterback, he's supposed to be a top 15 NFL draft pick. Last year they won 10 games, and in the SEC, you'll definitely take that, and they have a couple guys coming back that were really good. Overall, this one is self-explanatory. If you wouldn't rank Kentucky in the top 25, I understand it, but if you do have them as high as number 20, or even 18 or 17, I could also understand that. They're not a talented team by any means, but they're a real scrappy team that gets under your nerves. At number 23, I got Miami, and that is because I love what Mario Cristobal is doing there. For the past, I don't even know how long it's been, it seems like forever, Miami's been irrelevant and they've been a disappointment. Honestly, the entire state of Florida has been an embarrassment, and I'm talking about the big programs like Florida State, Miami, and Florida. It's been awful considering they have 5-star recruits in their backyard. Now that I think about it, the reasons I got Miami at 23 is very similar to Kentucky. They have a good quarterback coming back, and that's Tyler Van Dyke, and a lot of people feel like he could be a dark horse for the Heisman. And then also another reason why I like them, same thing with Kentucky, they have a great head coach, or a head coach that I like. I'm not too sold on Cristobal's coaching abilities, but his recruiting is out of this world. Another aspect I like about Cristobal is it appears to seem that he's trying to bring back that swagger that Miami once had in the 1990s. Will it it happen? Will he lead Miami back to their glory days? I don't know. But here's what I do know. With them having all these 4- and 5-star recruits coming in, there's no reason not to believe that they couldn't go 9-3 or even 10-2. The ACC is a terrible conference, and Miami, with the recruits they have, they should be pretty solid. At number 22, I think this is going to shock a lot of you guys, and probably nobody's going to agree with it, but I got LSU. I already know people are saying, Matt, LSU, they were terrible last year. They didn't even have a winning record. They wound up finishing 6-7, I believe, and in that bowl game, they didn't even have any other starters. Here's the thing with LSU you have to understand. You can just ignore that 6-7 record because last year it was a disaster. That football team was much better than 6-7, and all they're really missing is a great quarterback and a great head coach. I'm not the biggest Brian Kelly fan in the world. I'm not even a fan at all, but I gotta give him some respect. He's way better than Ed Orgeron. He knows what he's doing, and look at what he did with Notre Dame with not so good talent. And now he's got that LSU job where he can really recruit and get a lot of talented guys. I'd watch out for them next year. Obviously, I'm not going to be delusional. I think it is a rebuild year, but I think they're a sleeper that could upset a team here and there. With that being said, I also believe they're going to lose a game here and there that they shouldn't. The only reason everybody is scared to rank LSU so high is because they're in the toughest conference and in the toughest division in the country. Next year, just in the SEC West division, they got to play Alabama, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M, and Arkansas, all teams that are top 25 teams in my opinion. The SEC West is brutal, but I'm going to offer you this, and I hope this changes your opinion. If you swap out LSU and Miami, who do you think is going to have a better season? If you put Miami in the SEC West, nobody would predict them to be in the top 25. But if you put LSU in the ACC, oh yeah, they're going to win 9-10 games, no doubt. They're a sneaky team, and in college football, I think it's rather simple. It comes down to two things. Who's steering the ship and who are the employees on the ship? Well, I guess you could say it's three things. In college football, all you need is a great head coach, a great quarterback, and talent around them. In the modern era of 2022 college football, that is the proven recipe for success at the college level. At number 21, I got the Houston Cougars. And I don't expect many of you to know this, but their starting quarterback, Clayton, he's coming back. The Houston Cougars have been a sound team and program for a while now, and I just really think they're a team that nobody wants to play. They're good enough to compete with a lot of these Power 5 schools, and they also know they're not supposed to win those games, so they play kind of freely. They play like they have nothing to lose, and that's why we see them upset a team here and there. Coming in at number 20 on my list, I got no other than the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. The Demon Deacons. Come on, man. Is there a better nickname in college football? I don't think so. They have their starting quarterback coming back, and in a terrible conference like the ACC, they should thrive. Last year, they was a surprise team. They weren't supposed to be that good, and they wound up being really good. The expectations for Wake Forest, they're never too high, so for them to even be in the top 25, that's a good thing. I looked at their schedule, and realistically speaking, they should start out 3-0 before they match up with Clemson. I would predict Clemson to win that game, but with DJ Uyunglele at quarterback, you never know, because that dude is not that good. I don't think Wake Forest can upset teams like a Miami, LSU, or maybe even Kentucky, but I think they're good enough to have in the top 25. I gotta pay them respect for what they did last year, and knowing they're not losing too many weapons on offense coming into this year, there's no reason not to believe they're not gonna be good. Once again, I'm gonna bring it up all throughout this video, they're in the ACC. If they're in the SEC, we'd be having a completely different conversation, but the ACC, not so hot. Coming in at number 19 on our list, I got the Lane Train himself, the Ole Miss Rebels. You can't go wrong with Lane Kiffin. He's an offensive mastermind, a quarterback guru. His defense, questionable, but the offense, it's just great. The clear cut and obvious, yes, they do have question marks at the quarterback position. I know they got the transfer Jackson Dart, but you never know what's going to happen. It comes down to this. I love Lane Kiffin, and I believe in him, and Ole Miss, they're a solid team. The defense definitely needs work, and if I'm being honest, so does the offense. I just have so much belief in Kiffin, I think he'll figure it out. The only downside to Ole Miss, and it has nothing to do with them, they play in the SEC West just like LSU. The bright side of all of this is not too many people have high expectations for them, so there's no pressure. Coming in at 18 on our list, I got South Carolina. I can't stress this enough. I love what they're building over there, and they also got a good quarterback in the transfer portal. I think you guys know who I'm talking about, the polarizing Mr. Spencer Rattler. Say what you want about Rattler. His tenure at Oklahoma wasn't so hot, but he's still a good quarterback. I'm going to go out on a limb here and also say he's humbled a lot, and he's he's also matured, and that's going to help him. I wasn't a Rattler fan. I like Caleb Williams more, but he had an overall completion percentage of 70 at Oklahoma in 3 years. His arm talent concerns me. His accuracy concerns me, but I still think he's a good quarterback. I still think that program is about a year, 2, maybe 3 years away from being legit contenders, but they're on the right trajectory. They're not good enough to compete with Georgia just yet, but I think they're good enough to beat a lot of other teams. At number 17 on my list, and I struggle with all the Big Ten teams, I got Wisconsin. Here's why I have such a hard time dealing with them. Because I think they're all overrated, except for Ohio State. The Big Ten is a complete joke. You put Michigan State, Wisconsin, and Iowa in the SEC, they get exposed and they go 6-6 every year. But in the Big Ten, that doesn't happen, and we try to overhype these teams like, for example, Michigan State last year, and then they get exposed when they play real people like Ohio State. Wasn't it 56-0 at half or 49-0? Something like that. I don't even think it should be called the Big Ten. It should be called Ohio State and a bunch of goobers. That's what the conference should rename to. That's all it is. Ohio State and the 9 or however many teams are in that league, goobers. But, and I have a but, I do like Wisconsin. It's fairly simple. They remind me a lot of a 2008 or 2009 Alabama where they're going to play good defense and have great running backs. That's the problem though. They're so old school, they haven't caught up to modern times. They haven't switched from it though, because in the Big Ten, it works and they're always going to win 9, 10, maybe 11 games a year. And the way they play it's smart. They try to slow the game down and limit possessions. They're a frustrating team to watch and they're a frustrating team to play, and that's what makes them so good. They play a different style of football and it normally causes problems for other teams. As much as I don't respect the Big Ten, I do respect Wisconsin. At number 16 on our list, we got a team in a program that I think people should really, and I mean really, start paying attention to, and that's Arkansas. I will be the first person to tell you, last year I said it all year long, I don't believe in them. It wasn't just me though, nobody believed in their head coach Sam Pittman, and he shocked the country. Let's not forget when they had this highly anticipated matchup with Texas and drugged them through the water. I'm talking about that was one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen from Texas. They started the year out on fire. They were upsetting teams left and right. Now, they did wet the bed later on, but I can't discredit what I saw. I'll tell you this, they gained my respect, and I believe in what Sam Pittman is building over there. However, just because I believe in it, I don't want you to get too overexcited, Arkansas fans. You're still not good enough to compete with Georgia and Alabama, but I think you're good enough to be a top 20 team. Don't get discouraged by that, because no team outside the top 15 or 10 can compete with the top 4 or 5 schools. It's just not going to happen. We've said it a million times on this channel, we might as well say it again. There's no parity in college football. So just because I say Arkansas at number, what I got them, 16, can't compete with Alabama and Georgia, it doesn't mean the team that I got ranked ahead of them can either. Overall though, for Arkansas, just keep your eyes on them. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this, but their quarterback, KJ Jefferson, he reminds me a lot of Cam Newton. I'm not saying he's Cam Newton, but just watch him play. He's exciting to watch. At number 15, I got Oklahoma State, a team that reminds me a lot about Arkansas. They're in the same situation in my books. Obviously, I think they're slightly better than Arkansas, but I still don't think they're on that level to compete for championships, but they're still good enough to be around a top 15 team. And remember last year, they were what, 1 to 2 inches away from winning the Big 12 title? That's got to account for something. I also believe they won what, 12 games last year, and they beat Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl. And with Oklahoma in a midlife crisis and Texas trying to rebuild that crap show they got going on, they could easily win the Big 12 this year. Don't really lose too many weapons. I like their head coach and their quarterback, Spencer Sanders. He's coming back. The thing I like about them the most is they got experience on that team, and that matters a ton at the college level. At number 14, I got Cincinnati. And now that I really think about it and look at it, I should probably flip-flop them in Oklahoma State. 14, 15, doesn't really matter, but the reason I'm going to give them the slight edge is because Luke Fickell, he's proven he's a good coach. Last year was about as good as a year and as good as talent that Cincinnati will ever have. Their defensive backs, Sauce Gardner and Kobe Bryant, they were 2 of the best in the country, and Desmond Ridder, although I don't think he's going to be an NFL superstar, he was decent at the college level. This year will tell us a lot about Fickell's coaching ability, because he's got to replace a ton on defense, and he's also got to figure out the quarterback situation. In week 1, we'll be able to tell if they're the real deal or not, because guess what? They play another top 25 team, in my opinion, Arkansas. We'll have to wait and see what happens in that matchup, but if you do pick Cincinnati in that game, or Arkansas, you can can make a legit case and argument for either one. At number 13 on my list, I'm excited for this one. We got Tennessee. What about that? Good old Rocky Top. Are they back? I would say Tennessee, they're a prestigious school and program. The problem is they've sucked for the past 10 to 15 years. It goes without a single doubt in my mind, Tennessee has the most passionate fan base in all of college football, and right behind that I'd put probably Oklahoma. The love that all these Oklahoma fans have for their team, I've never seen it before, but Tennessee's a whole different level. I don't even think I have to bring it up. It speaks for itself. You saw what they did last year to Lane Kiffin. The key word in that statement was I said they're the most passionate fan base. That doesn't mean they're the smartest and the best fan base. Passion can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing, and it could also lead to throwing golf balls at Lane Kiffin. But anyways, that's besides the point. Let's talk about the actual team. If you look at the score of the ball games against Georgia and Alabama, you wouldn't think it was close, but if you watched them, you would have known it was a completely different story. Tennessee and Alabama were neck and neck up until the fourth quarter when Alabama just ran away with it, and the same thing happened to Georgia. The thing I loved about Tennessee last year was when they played the two best teams in the country, Alabama and Georgia, they competed. They didn't just get drugged through the water like Michigan or Cincinnati did in the playoffs. They were there with them. Josh Heupel's doing an incredible job for them, and they also have a Heisman sleeper, or I don't even think he's a sleeper. He's a real Heisman candidate at their quarterback position, Hendon Hooker. If you haven't seen Hendon Hooker play, you got to watch him. He's must-see TV. Realistically speaking, Tennessee, they should still be a year or two away, but nobody thought they'd be good last year, and they were. They could accelerate the process even more, and I wouldn't be shocked if they upset Georgia. I really love what Tennessee's got going on there. Hopefully they don't screw it up, but the Tennessee thing to do would be to screw it up. At number 12 on our list, I got Oregon. And the reason I got him at 12, which is kind of high, is because of Bo Nix. Although Bo got a lot of backlash at Auburn, I think he was a solid quarterback. Auburn just failed to surround him with a good offensive line and wide receiver weapons. At Oregon, I do think he's going to have slightly better weapons, and he's going to be in a better situation. And it's almost a breath of fresh air. At Auburn, from day one, the fan base and everyone in the SEC, they were criticizing him so much. Just to get out of that toxic environment, that toxic relationship, I think it's going to elevate his game. You got to have talent, but before talent and physical stuff, you got to have it mentally. I think mentally at Auburn, it just wasn't good for Bo, and I think at Oregon, it's going to be better. I got to throw this in there. The Pac-12 is, without a doubt, the worst conference, so that's obviously going to help him play better. It's a much different situation from playing Texas A&M, Alabama, LSU, and who else? Arkansas every week, and then you're going to the Pac-12. It's not necessarily the fact that I think Bo's going to have an incredible season. I just think he's going to be playing easier competition, and that's going to help out a ton. At number 11, I got a team that went 5-7 last year. I'm talking about Texas. You're probably starting to get the pattern of things. If a team has a great quarterback and a great head coach, in my opinion, I'm going to rank them on this list and rank them pretty high. But with Texas, here's what takes them to a completely different level, and I think they could easily be a top 10 team. They don't just have a good head coach, and I think Steve Sarkisian, he's good. They have a great quarterback, arguably a top 5 quarterback in the country, and they also have great weapons. Texas has all the talent in the world, and there's no excuse for them to have a failure of a season. And I don't even care if it's Quinn Ewers' first year there and Steve Sarkisian's first year there. We're not talking about Texas Tech. We're not talking about Texas Southern. We're talking about Texas. There's no down years there. You're expected to compete and win championships every single year, or at least that was the old standard. I would love to throw them in the top 10, and I was close to doing that. But here's why I couldn't, and it's a major red flag. That defense is atrocious. What I saw last year was so embarrassing to the fact I had to turn my TV off. I'm not even talking about blowing coverages. I'm talking about these guys can't even tackle. And also the culture there is terrible. These guys, they have terrible attitudes, so they're going to have to turn that around and prove something to me next year. So that's why I only got them at 11. And maybe to some of you, 11 is high, but I hope that goes to show you just how good I think Quinn Ewers is. At number 10, I got the most overrated team of all time, the most overrated team in the country. And I had to just throw them at 10 because they're going to breeze through their conference because it's terrible. We got Michigan. Michigan pisses me off because if you throw them in the SEC, they go 8-4 every single year. But since in the Big Ten, they go 10-2, 11-1, and sometimes maybe possibly 12-0 if they get lucky. My only problem with Michigan is I think Jim Harbaugh, he's a good head coach. He's not great. He's good. They simply don't have the guys to compete. I think the stat was something like Michigan and Cincinnati only had 8 4- and 5-star recruits, and Alabama and Georgia combined had like 70. The main difference with Michigan and all these other teams in the top 5 is whereas Michigan has 2 to 3 great dudes and 2 to 3 4- and 5-star recruits, Alabama and Georgia, they have 20. So for every Aiden Hutchinson that Michigan has, and I think he was beyond overrated, Alabama has 5 of those guys. Aiden Hutchinson, he was a good dude, humble dude, but come on now. He wasn't even the best defensive player in the country last year. That was Will Anderson. And if you don't think Will Anderson was the best player in the country last year, you're delusional and you need to get help. Michigan is fraudulent. They're just like Notre Dame, but I do think they're good enough to be right at 10. Nothing above that. Let me make this clear. I don't care if they're 12-0 heading into the Big Ten Championship. They still shouldn't be inside of the top 8 or 9. Jim Harbaugh is a fraud behind the scheme too. He's not a great head coach, he's a good one. Don't get it twisted. Coming in at number 9 on our list, I got the Baylor Bears. Come on, man. You can't go wrong with putting Baylor at number 9. They won the Big 12 championship last year. Dave Aranda, he's been awesome last year, and he's turned that program around for the better. Considering they overachieved to win the championship last year in their conference, I don't see why they couldn't do the same thing this year. And if you do win the Big 12 championship, you're going to be in conversation for possibly going to the playoff. Let's not overcomplicate this. Baylor's a really good team. They're not great, but maybe in 2 to 3 years they could potentially be great. But for next year, I don't think they're quite on the level of competing for championships, so I think 9 suits them best. And number 8, we got a team and a fan base I love. We got Oklahoma. I know. Some of you are saying, well, Matt, they lost their head coach, they lost their quarterback, they lost their wide receiver. But I just love the culture there. It's not so much about losing players and head coaches, because I'll offer you this. Nick Saban loses assistant coaches and players every single year, but yet Alabama's still number 1. It's about what you install in your program, and it's about the culture you build. And for Oklahoma, we can't deny the fact that they have one of the best cultures of all time. They're not on the level of Alabama, but they have a name and brand that's attractive. Let's not beat around the bush, and let's talk about the elephant in the room, Lincoln Riley. Yes, they lose Lincoln Riley, and I, for one, I love Lincoln Riley. I think he's a great coach. He only gets hate for doing something that everybody else would have done. However, as much as I do like Lincoln Riley, I like Brent Venables about as much. I don't like Venables for the reason you may think. Here's why I like him. He fits the Oklahoma culture. The only problem I have with Riley is he feels Hollywood. He didn't feel like Oklahoma to me. He feels like USC. But with Venables, you got a guy who wouldn't leave that job for nothing, and he's all about the players. And I'm not saying Lincoln Riley wasn't about the players. He just seems more businesslike. Lincoln Riley's going to do what's best for him and his family, whereas Brent Venables, I think he'd do what's best for his players and put his family second. Because the Venables, and here's the main difference, the players are his family. I could be wrong about this. Venables, he could go out there and be a terrible head coach, but I just don't see him being all too bad. The only downside is, and I do want to address it as well, oh, Matt, he's a defensive head coach. How that's going to work in 2022? I get the argument. It doesn't make sense to hire a defensive coach when that's an offensive school, and 2022, it's just offense. My counter argument to that is this right here. I think he'll figure it out, and the offensive coordinator, they'll do all that stuff for him. He'll focus on defense, and everybody else will focus on offense, and I think he'll be fine. Great coaches and great people, they figure it out. Oklahoma has a ton of talent, and one concern I do have is the quarterback, Dylan Gabriel. I'm not sold on him, but with the Big 12 not being all too great of a conference, he should do fine. It comes down to this. I love the culture, and I think that takes you far in a football program. Coming in at number 7 on our list, we got the Pac-12 champs. I got Utah. At first, I struggled with this because I said, Matt, come on, Utah? But then I went back and I watched some film. Like I said, yeah, they did win the Pac-12 championship, but that's a weak conference. Here's what I do care about. Their offense is insane, and they can score at anybody. The only concern I have about them, and it's the same thing with Texas, their defense is one of the worst in the country. Did you see what that Ohio State receiver did to him last year? Wasn't it Smith Najigba? He had like 300 yards on him. It was insane. They couldn't cover the dude. They even tried putting 2 people on him, and they still couldn't cover him. An interesting matchup, though, is they do play Florida in week 1, and I would predict Utah to win by double digits. Their defense is shaky, but in 2022, if you can score 55 points a game, who cares what your defense does? I like Utah. I also like the fact they play in a weak conference. At number 6 on our list, we're going to keep it in the Pac-12, and I think you know who it is. We got USC. This might be the most controversial one out of them all, but I'm going to explain. Before you run to the comment section and say, Matt, USC at 6? What are you smoking? Hear me out. Lincoln Riley is a mastermind and he is a genius on the offensive side of the ball. He also recruited one of the best quarterbacks in all college football, and we saw that last year, Caleb Williams. They also got Jordan Addison, the Biletnikoff winner from Pittsburgh, and also Mario Williams from Oklahoma. And those are at the wide receiver position, and they're also going to be fine at running back, but who cares about the running back? They're going to be throwing all over the field. Call me crazy, but I think USC is going to average around 43, 44 points per game. Here's my question. If you think I'm crazy, who's going to stop them in the Pac-12? Nobody's going to stop them, but the concern I have with them, it's the same thing with Texas and same thing with Utah. Their defense is awful. If their defense wasn't awful, I might have them in the top 5, but 6 is okay for now. When it comes down to the top 15 and top 15 of these teams, here's how I rank them, and I want to give you some insight. I look at it and say, okay, if I have this team at 6, can they beat the team I have at 7? Every team I look at behind USC, Utah, Oklahoma, Baylor, Michigan, Texas, Oregon, Tennessee, I look at them and say, yeah, I'd pick USC in that game. I just don't see how, if any of you disagree with me, you can point to any of the teams I have behind USC and say they'd win the head-to-head matchup. From what I saw out of Caleb Williams last year, I'm not going to be picking against him too much. I'm not putting my money against him. That dude's incredible. He makes insane plays, and he's also really good and talented. At first, I was like, well, we haven't seen USC play just yet under Lincoln Riley, but then I sat back and thought about it, and I was like, wait a minute. Yes, we have. This USC team is really just Oklahoma, but they're going to be in USC jerseys. Lincoln Riley coached Caleb Williams at Oklahoma, and we saw how that went. So, yes, technically, we have seen him play. And last time I checked, Lincoln Riley's defenses at Oklahoma, they weren't all too great. So it's not like this USC defense is going to have heavy expectations. He's just going to say, hey, hold them under 30 and we should win. Although Oklahoma has a better culture, USC has better talent, and sometimes talent, it's superior. I understand that USC, they're already getting a ton of hype, but I don't think it's enough. Everybody is failing to realize it doesn't take 2, 3, or even 4 years to rebuild a team anymore. You can do it in 1 year because of the transfer portal and the NIL. You're about to see full head-on what Lincoln Riley is going to do in 1 year. I would be shocked if USC won less than 10 games. Here's my question to you guys. Who's beating them? And I'm not just talking about the Pac-12. I'm talking about the rest of the people you'd put ahead of them. I feel like a lot of people, when I see it, they're putting Michigan over USC, but here's my question. I'm not picking Michigan to beat USC. That's how I want you guys to make these rankings, or try to validate my rankings in your head. Because I know a lot of people are going to have Michigan over USC, but honestly, do you really think, and are you really picking Michigan to beat Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley? I know I'm not. USC has more talent than Michigan, they have a better quarterback than Michigan, and they have a better head coach than Michigan. So why in the crap are people ranking Michigan in the top 10 and USC outside the top 10? Make it make sense. That's why I'm making this video, because I'm giving you the real rankings. We're now entering the top 5 of our list, and coming in at number 5, this one I struggled with for a long time, but I'm going to put Clemson there. I didn't struggle with putting Clemson at number 5, but I wanted to put them at number 4, but I couldn't. You know why I couldn't? Because it comes down to one player. You know what I'm talking about. DJ Uyunglele. Or most people call him DJ Oogabadoogie, but whatever. I see why people call him DJ Oogabadoogie, because he's been playing like Oogabadoogie. And if he continues to play like Oogabadoogie, you better believe I'm switching his name next year to Oogabadoogie. Whatever you want to call him. Ukulele, Oogabadoogie. It doesn't matter. He's not a great quarterback, and I'm not even too sure if he's good. I don't want to sit up here and criticize him too much. It's simple. If you watched it last year, you know this, and even Clemson fans know this. He's not a championship caliber quarterback. He reminds me a lot of the guy they had that played in before Trevor Lawrence, and they wound up benching him. Kelly Bryant. That was his name. Kelly Bryant wasn't playing bad, but he wasn't playing good enough to win a championship, and that's how DJ plays. But if you want me to be honest, DJ's playing far worse than Bryant. I've never seen a quarterback make so many bad throws. He has terrible communication with his wide receivers. Sometimes they break left and he'll throw it right. It just mind-boggled me last year. I've never seen a Clemson and Dabo Swinney team that out of mix with things. And I hate to break the news to these Clemson fans, but it's not something you fix over the summer. You just have to come to a realization. He'll never be that guy. He doesn't have the it factor. But you know who might have the it factor? Cade Klubnik, your backup quarterback. He should be starting by probably week 4. Because in week 4, that's when they play Wake Forest or Demon Deacons. I just think Cade Klubnik, he's the future. If Clemson did have a better quarterback, I'd rank him higher on this list, but because of the concerns, I only got him at 5. Coming in at number 4 on our list, this is going to be controversial. I got A&M, and I'm talking about Texas A&M. For those of you that have been watching the channel, you might be shocked by this because you know I don't believe in Jimbo Fisher, and I don't believe in Texas A&M. But here's what I do believe in. I believe in talent. And last time I checked, Texas A&M had the best recruiting class and signed 7 5-star recruits. It made history and people are still talking about it till this day. Is Jimbo Fisher a great coach? No, he's in the same category as Brian Kelly. He's a good coach. But when I look at Texas A&M and the team they have coming back, I'm like, man, these guys are loaded. And why I got them at number 4 right above Clemson is because if they played on a neutral site, I'd pick A&M to win the game. Although I am concerned at the quarterback position, they have so much talent, they can plug in any guy and I think they'll be just fine. Kind of similar to Georgia with Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett, he looks like a DoorDash driver, but he won a championship, so it is what it is. Why I got him at 4 is also this. Jimbo's been there a while and he's building something. What that something is, I don't know. Normally just amounts to an 8-4 or 9-3 season every single year. But what happened was last year when they beat Alabama, I think those players started to realize, hey, we can actually compete for championships. I think that win against Alabama, it was a fluke. I don't think A&M was a better team. They just had a great night. And it goes to show I'm right on that because after the game, they wound up being terrible again. And that quarterback who played in it, that was one of the greatest games I've ever seen against Alabama. He made every single big time throw. He just played the game of his life and he'll never play that good again. It was just one of those games and nights where it was Texas A&M's time to win. But what that win did is it told all these players within that culture, okay, we can actually do this. We can beat Alabama. The bottom line with A&M, you just can't ignore the talent they're bringing in. Moving on to our final and top 3, this was the easiest part of this video and it took no thinking whatsoever. At number 3, I got Georgia. It's self-explanatory. Great team, but they lost 15 players to the NFL draft and this is going to be a rebuild year. It's not going to be an Alabama reload year because Alabama, they don't rebuild, they reload. I think Georgia is actually rebuilding, but I still think they're going to be that much better than everybody else. Y'all know how I feel about Stetson DoorDash Bennett. Don't believe in the dude. I think he's a mediocre quarterback at best, but he does bring experience. He's been there before, and all these young guys coming in, he's going to be able to mentor them. Nobody's arguing with Georgia at 3. That's fine. At number 2, I got Ohio State, and at number 1, you know who I got. I got Alabama. Nobody's going to argue with this, and if you do argue with it, you're a complete idiot. Let me talk about the Ohio State one first. You got CJ Stroud coming back. He could potentially win the Heisman. Ohio State, they're great on offense, but their defense, yikes. Defense is atrocious. That is a major concern with them. They got a lot to work on in the secondary. The reason I have Alabama at number 1 is because technically, if you go off of the books, they got the best player in the country coming back, and that's Bryce Young. But if you want my honest opinion, I don't think Bryce Young's the best player in the country. I didn't think he was the best player in the country last year. I thought it was his teammate, Will Anderson. Will Anderson is the best player in the country. He's a defensive lineman. I've never seen anything like it before. It's insane. He should have won the Heisman last year, but we all know the Heisman is an offensive award, so that's why he didn't win it. And if he has a great year this year, he should win it, but we know how that goes. He's not going to. More than likely, it's going to be CJ Stroud if he has a good year. And it's not just those two guys. Alabama's defense, they have a bunch of experience. I thought they were bad at times last year and mediocre and good at best, but they could be great and legendary this year. And on the offensive side of the ball, they don't even have Bryce Young. They stole so many recruits in the transfer portal. It's been insane. They got the number 1 transfer running back, Jahmyr Gibbs. I feel like a lot of people don't know him, but trust me, you'll know him later on in the season. He's lightning fast. He's going to help out a ton in the running game, and they also stole Georgia's best wide receiver, Jermaine Burton, and also another speed demon from Louisville and Tyler Harris. Alabama's offense is looking unreal, and the defense is also looking really good, if not unreal itself. The reason I got him at number 1, and it's not even close, there's no weaknesses, whereas in Ohio State, Georgia, and Clemson, I see weaknesses. For Georgia, it's the defense, all the players they lost, and also Stetson Bennett. That's a major question mark. For Ohio State, I have no questions about offense, but the defense, it concerns me. For Clemson, DJ Uyunglele, we know how that goes. And A&M, you don't know who's going to play quarterback. But for Alabama, I'm sitting there looking at it going, dang, where's the weakness? That's why I got him at number 1, and that is my top 25 or way too early top 25 list heading into 2022. Yeah, this video has been extremely long. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Trying something a little different on the channel. Let me know your thoughts down below. But what up, you hobbies?